Good evening. A man from Hampshire says he spent over £70,000 because his prescription medication caused him to develop an addiction to gambling and spending. Phil Stevens from Ringwood says that he was never warned of the side effects, which studies have found can affect 10 to 20% of people who take medicines known as dopamine agonists. The side effects are listed in the medication leaflet and online, but Phil wants doctors to share the information with patients directly. He's been talking to Curtis Lancaster.
I never knew how much I'd gone through until there was a forensic audit on all of my accounts, and when I looked, I just cried my eyes out.
In 2018, Phil Stevens from Ringwood was prescribed medication for restless leg syndrome, but he says he wasn't warned about the drug's side effects.
I'd wake up early hours of the morning, go onto one of the gambling websites and see if there was any live bets going on, horse racing, football, anything to put a bet on.
He admits he did occasionally bet before he took the drug, but says the medication caused him to develop an addiction to gambling and spending. Over 4 years, he spent around £70,000.
All of our savings, my bank account, I think at stages I'd be thousands overdrawn. I mean, we had another house that we owned that we rented out, and that was part of our pension plan, but we had to sell it to get monies back in the bank again. But none of it seemed wrong. That's the craziness of it. It all seemed so right at the time.
Phil also has multiple sclerosis and says his wife did not challenge his behaviour because she thought it was linked to this condition. For his restless leg syndrome, Phil was given medication known as a dopamine agonist. In the UK, it's commonly prescribed to patients with Parkinson's and restless leg syndrome. Its side effects are listed in the medication leaflet and online, but patients like Phil claim that if they had been alerted directly to the possible side effect of compulsive behaviour, they might not have taken the drug, or would at least have been able to recognise the behaviour as a possible side effect and get help sooner.
Here's my garage with some of my fishing gear in. When it was a full garage, it was a full garage. I mean, I had every bait known to mankind, never used it. In a short period, I spent £6,500 on fishing equipment.
And you initially took it for your restless legs?
Yeah.
How is that now you don't take it anymore?
Oh, my legs, I wake up in pain. But the pain is more comforting than what I went through. I can live with the pain. I'm just not, and I will not go to the doctors and ask for anything for it.
Studies have found that impulse control disorders affect 10 to 20% of people who take a dopamine agonist.
The first case I settled was back in 2015, and I would estimate that since then I have had at least 50 inquiries. Mr. Stevens contacted me having seen a story that was already on our website about a case I'd previously settled. My hope is that these cases will shine light on the issue and patient safety will improve as a result.
Phil received a £70,000 settlement from his GP, but they did not admit liability. We did approach Phil's GP, but they did not provide a comment. Julie Gold is part of a charity which supports people with restless leg syndrome in the UK.
The most common request we get is how do they get off dopamine agonists? And it's quite sad that they're using a help site rather than going to their doctor because they know their doctor can't help them. It can cause impulse spending, so somebody can suddenly find themselves buying goods or services that they've never used before. We've had people who've lost their marriages because they've suddenly become irrationally obsessed with sex and prostitution. We want doctors to be taught about this condition and to warn their patients of the side effects. And we want dopamine agonists to be relegated to end-of-life scenarios.
I'm Dr. Julian Spinks, and I've been a GP for over 35 years and have a particular interest in restless leg syndrome. I have a degree of sympathy for my GP colleagues. Restless leg syndrome doesn't appear on the curriculum of any medical school in the UK at the moment, and so unless they read in detail the prescribing advice that's in things such as the NICE Clinical Knowledge Service, they may not be aware of the fact they need to be warning the patient this problem can arise.
The most widely known dopamine agonist is GlaxoSmithKline's Requip, also known as Ropinirole. This was the medication which was given to Phil Stevens. A GlaxoSmithKline spokesperson said, "As with all medicines, Requip has potential side effects and these are clearly stated in the prescribing information. Patients should only take Requip under the direction of a medical professional."
I'm not saying don't take it. I don't have any right to say that. But I would say, if you're in a position where a doctor was to prescribe you or want to prescribe that medication, ask the questions, get all the information, and then make that informed choice. Because it does work for many people. Unfortunately, for some, it does not.
And if you've been affected by any issues in Curtis's report, then you can find information and advice on the BBC's Action Line. Details on the screen for you right now.